Good morning. Welcome to Down to Earth with Harriet. It is Wednesday. Is it? Wednesday already. It's Wednesday, September 19th. I got that right? And it's Wednesday, September 19th. And I think I'm losing my voice. So if I sound a little off-putting, it's because I think I'm losing my voice. Hey, everybody. Hi. Just saying hello to everyone who is joining us. We're streaming on other platforms. And I just want to tell you, thank you to Anchor FM for promoting our show and getting us on other platforms. For those of you who are just joining us, we're also available on Google Podcasts, right? That's a good thing. We're on Overcast, we're on Postercast, and a variety of other platforms, including Spotify. Can't miss the big one, the big guys, right? So, as usual, go to other platforms and listen. So if you missed this episode or you want to listen to other episodes, go to the other podcast so that you can hear what we have to say. Good morning to everybody who's joining us. I just want to tell you that I've had quite the morning, and I just thank God for grace and mercy. It's been a wild evening yesterday. I thought, it's one of those evenings where you think you go to bed, right? And you think it's the end of the day, and you're like, yeah, I survived. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed. And then you get in bed and you're like, okay, there are a couple of phone calls I didn't make that I should make. And then you start calling and you start talking. And before you know it, you're like, okay, so this is why I had to call you. So thank God for refreshing and replenishing our spirit and our mental reserves so that I can come to you fresh and able to hear what you have to say and to talk to you about what matters, right? So today on our show, I wanted to talk about the fact we've been talking about relationships for an extended period of time. But lately, this has been coming up before me, and I wanted to talk about what happens when you get a bad diagnosis. What happens to you when you get a bad diagnosis? How does your family cope, and what do they do? And it's interesting that I should bring it up because I recognize that so many of us have been placed in that position. I have been through that when what happens many times now, more times than I can count, more times than I am comfortable acknowledging because it seems like it's a life event. So I wanted to talk to you about that because it may not be you, but it might be someone you know. It could be a family member who was recently diagnosed with a terminal illness for whom the doctor has pronounced a life sentence, right? And for whom there is a stated program of care that has to be reckoned with. But what happens to the person? What happens to the individual who now has to confront their own mortality? And I wanted to talk about that to give you some perspective on it. And even in just saying that, it sounds so final. It sounds as if it's over. So I wanted to talk about that and so on. But I wanted to have fun in the meantime with the politics of the day, right? Because the politics of the day is funny. Yes, it is, right? There is Saudi Arabia over there talking about Iran took down their drones. And the rest of us are like, okay. They have drones flying over here too. There are drones flying all over the place. What's the big deal? So they took down your drones. It's not the end of the world, dude. Go put your defenses up. It's like you have a pesky neighbor who is always letting his dog come on your property. Instead of complaining about that, why don't you put up a fence? What's the point in always creating a problem? Go put up a fence. Well, that's what Saudi Arabia needs to do. Go put up a defense shield. Like, you didn't, the rest of us are like, so dude, you had all that gold sitting there because their gold is their oil, right? And you didn't have a proper defense up about it. Oh, so now you want the rest of the world to run to your help. Like, really? But you were busy killing a journalist. Like you were some big bad dude because he disagreed with you and dared to disagree with you. So you killed a whole human being because he disagreed with you. And now you want the rest of us to come and to hold your hand because Iran played the big bad guy. I'm telling you, the politics of the day. You're looking at it and you're like, it's like a game of chess, isn't it? Like a game of chess, and they're just moving people around on it. Interesting, right? So I thought I'd talk with you about that because I'm having fun just watching it. I'm having so much fun. I'm having so much fun. Yesterday, journalist Cokie Roberts, it was announced that she had passed away. And we say kudos to her. She's a longtime journalist, very familiar to most of us. We grew up seeing her on ABC. And I think it was ABC she was on most of the time. So we're very familiar. So condolences to her family and for what she represents to women in journalism and broadcasting, right? So we say that. I just turned my head too quickly. I shouldn't have done that. I know, right? So today I want to talk about what happens when you get a bad diagnosis, and I want to kind of get into it because there's a lot to talk about around that, and I want to talk about it from the perspective that there are folks, even right now as we speak, who today's that day when they're going to go to the doctor and get a diagnosis, and they have to go home and tell the world about it and to tell their family about it, right? So I wanted to talk about that and to let you give give you some kind of perspective on it and to help you to navigate what do you do in those situations. I can talk about it because I've been there, I've experienced it. It's not the nicest place to be when you have to go home and tell your family that you got a diagnosis, because immediately you think of the ramifications and the implications for the family. So that's the first thing you think about. Because for some reason, especially when they pronounce a life sentence, they say 6 months, 8 months, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years. Somehow when they pronounce it, it doesn't ring true. If anybody has ever been in that position, it doesn't ring true. It's just like if you go to the doctor and they tell you that if you don't lose weight, then diabetes and uncontrollable hypertension is going to be a problem. If you have hypertension and it is very high, when you go to the doctor, they're going to tell you that your hypertension is too high. It will give you a problem, right? It's the same thing, right? What do you do when you go home and they give you a diagnosis? What if you're the breadwinner for the family, right? What if you are the main person in the family? One of the hardest things I have found is that when it's the mother, right? Because mom is whom the whole family revolves around. Even when the children are out of the home and they're grown, mom is still central, right? Mom is like ground zero. Mom knows everybody's schedule. She knows where everybody is. She knows who is married to who. She knows who is having trouble where, right? Mom is the director. She's the family mediator. She's the family organizer. She certainly is the strategist in the family. Because when you have issues and you call her, she says, well, why don't you talk to so-and-so? Or why don't you do so-and-so? So when it is mom, and now suddenly mom is facing a life sentence, initially everybody is frozen. Like they don't know what to do. They don't know what are they going to say because this is whom life revolves around. And that's when you realize whom life revolves around. So what do you do when it's you? If you're the mom, or if it's you, and you get a life sentence, let's say hypothetically you're single and you go to the doctor, you've been having some issues for some time and it's kind of funny, you might be young, right? Or relatively young or youthful in your perspective, and you go to the doctor and they tell you that something is wrong. What do you do? The first thing you're going to do is pray. Right there in the midst of that, you're going to pray. And you know what you're going to say? You're going to say, Father, thy will be done in my life. That's the first thing you're going to say. Because what else can you say at that time? You don't know especially when they're going to give you an outcome and tell you that you have 6 months or 8 months. And then the second thing you're going to say is, guess what? Protect my family. Hover over my family. Because now you have to go and tell your family that your life has been impacted by this diagnosis. And this is a real thing for folks to deal with because some of you might be young enough, but you have parents who are aging. So let's say you're in your 30s, your parents are in their 50s or 60s. It is not going to be uncommon for your parents to get a diagnosis. Sometimes they don't even tell their children. You know why? Don't hate them. They don't tell you because they know how it will affect you and they don't want you to be hurt. So sometimes they don't tell you until it's too, it's far gone, right? And then you're like, well, I could have done, I could have done. No time for recrimination. Just live in the moment, right? Let's say it's you. You are 35. How do you call your parents and tell them? Especially because you're in your 30s and your parents are in their 50s and 60s. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is that they would gladly exchange plates with you because they don't want to see their child hurt. But what do you do when it is your young child? You have a 2-year-old and from the child was born, after a while, you notice developmentally something is wrong. She's not progressing, he's not progressing according to children his or her age. What do you do? How do you process that and how do you deal with it? I've come to you today to talk about it in a real way that I hope is going to help you to navigate the corridors of human hurt. These are the issues that we confront. These are the issues that we have to deal with. When this show is done and the cameras are gone and the radio is turned off and you log out of the app and you shut the app, real life continues for a lot of people. A lot of people have to go home and take care of an aging parent, a sick spouse, and an unwell child. Then you have to confront with your own humanity. So what about when it's you? You have all these plans for your life. You haven't finished your life yet. You've heard them talk about a bucket list. I don't believe in bucket lists. I believe you should always live your life to the fullest every day. That's what I believe. I believe live your best life now. No, right now. I believe you live your best life now. Live your life to the fullest. I told my youngest daughter yesterday, I said, instead of joking off, make sure you go to college. Make sure you finish well so you can live your best life. I said, go on and live your best life. Don't look back. Live your best life. Because life is fleeting and it's short, and there's nothing like a diagnosis to make us confront our mortality. None of us want to be reminded that there is an expiration date that we will attend. We will have to attend that expiration date. Let me help you out. Our expiration date is not a choice. It's not a variable in the composite of human life. Our expiration date is a given. As sure as the date we were born, there is an expiration date for all of us. I think it behooves us to attend to that matter because we spend our lives living as if we will never expire. And while that to some extent is emotionally and mentally good because it provides you with optimism, it keeps your engine optimistic and hopeful and so on and youthful and keeps you going. At the same time, you have to be cognizant that at any given moment, there is an expiration date that requires your attention, whether we like it or not, whether we're ready or not. I don't believe everyone dies skating into it like, man, I'm glad I made it. No, I think most people are like, what? What am I doing here? I'm not ready yet. I didn't plan this. I didn't finish this. I didn't do that. I should have, whatever. I believe that's how most of us arrive at our expiration date. Like, hey, heaven, what am I doing up here? No, man, this is not for me, man. Man, I want to go back. Take me back. I got folks. I didn't tell so-and-so I love them. I didn't tell so-and-so I forgave them. And all of a sudden, you're given this diagnosis. And it makes you confront the fact that there is an expiration date on your life. How do you deal with that? Now, is that something that sends you into depression? No. That's something that requires your attention because now you have to go and organize your life. You are responsible for your life now. You have to now go and you have to organize. Who do you have to call to tell them you love them? Who do you have to call to tell them you have forgiven them? What about your assets and the disposition? If you love the people you love, then you're going to organize that your assets are disposed of. right? You're going to organize how will this process of treatment, we call it the disease process. How will the disease process be treated? You got to write it out. You got to tell people, appoint a patient advocate, knowing that there might come a time when you won't even be able to speak for yourself, but you will want someone to carry out your best interests. Write letters to the people you love. Yes, you do. When you've been given a diagnosis, get pen and paper and write letters. Long after everything is over, they will have the letters as something tangible to read over and over again to remind them that you lived, and while you lived, you loved them. Because make no mistake about it, everybody has an expiration date. It's not one of the things that we should shy away from. I think what has happened in the last 50 years, we stopped talking about it. So when people die, we're like, oh, what happened? Like, man, that shouldn't have happened. You have never met anybody who has lived forever, have you? No. The Bible says there was a man named Methuselah who lived for over 900 years. So is Methuselah alive today? No. Studies show that the Bible was written 6,000 years ago. So where's Methuselah? And he went at a time that they were writing that. He had been dead a long time. But according to the writer, Moses, he had lived for 900 years. So you've never met anybody who has lived forever. And if you don't believe me, Henry Ford is not around today. Neither is Frederick Douglass. Neither is John Kennedy. Neither is his ex-wife, Jackie Kennedy. Right? Ronald Reagan is not around today. Right? Gerald Ford is not around. So you have never met anybody who has lived forever. So why do you think that you are going to live forever? The thing to do is to have a plan for your life. That while you're here, yes, you live gloriously. But you also have to take into consideration, what if something happens to me? What happens to the people whom I love? What will they do? So the minute you get a diagnosis, you start writing letters and you start calling and you have an honest conversation with the people you love. Make sure you tell them how much they mean to you. I cannot tell you how much that will mean to them. I've lived it. They need to know that in the future to come, when they won't have access to you to talk to them, that they have a memory that you told them how much they love you, how much you love them. You love them. And then you have to pray for yourself as you go through and navigate the stuff that you're going to go through. Have issues lined up. If you have to go to the doctor with someone, because if they put you on medication, half the times you don't remember what is discussed. So go to the doctor with someone who can keep a record for you. So many people I meet won't share with their family what they're sick. I recently talked to someone. She wouldn't tell members of her family that she's sick. When I ask her why, she says it's none of their business. But you're dying. What are they going to do when you die? If you don't tell them what you want, won't write out a will, right? That is so irresponsible. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have a will, it is irresponsible to not have a will. If you have $100 in the bank, write a will out. Somebody once said the ceiling is $4,000. I'm like, if you have $1,000 in the bank, write a will. It is so irresponsible to not, because everything then goes to court and then your family members are sitting there in way land like, what happens now? Then you have sibling rivalry and you have families start fighting over your assets. It is irresponsible to not write a will. Write it out. Leave it so people know what is it that you wanted them to do. Take care of them. Don't just live selfishly. In today's world, we're so selfish and self-centered. Everything is about us and me, the me time. Me, what I want, without thinking of the impact that it has on others. And that is a very selfish way to be. Yes, it is. Right? So write a will. So the minute you get a diagnosis, you pray about it. Right? You ask questions. And you write out a will. And you call a family meeting. and you give them the facts. And if needs be, in cases of chronic illnesses, sometimes the physician will offer to speak to a member of the family to explain the process, especially when surgery is required. So nominate one person, not everybody, because everybody has their own feelings, their own way. People will go crazy. So nominate one person, say, okay, everybody, Sandra, Sally, Ashley, May, Tom, Dick, Harry, Jack, John, Donald is going to talk to the doctor and come back and tell the rest of us what happened. Right? Have a list of questions. If it's you, have a list of questions because you want to know how this is going to impact your life. Can you go to work? If you can't go to work, at what point will you need to stop working? How will the disease interact with the current medications you're taking? How will the disease interact with the physical environment around you? Ask questions. Go to work and ask them what are your options for leave. Take it when it is necessary. Can you still work out? Can you exercise? What are the dietary restrictions? What you're doing is life. Look at it this way. You got to understand that at some point, we're all going to kick it out of here. At some point. Why are we making it so that it's like, oh my God, you were born to live forever? No one lives forever. Nobody. Not in this life. Not like this. Nobody. Right? Right. It's the gentlest way that I can express it so that you don't walk away thinking that, man, you're going to live forever. No one does. At some point, and especially today with all the plagues that are illnesses that are pervasive across the spectrum of humanity, not just here in America, but around the world, you begin to realize that there is a termination to life. You see all these young people taking their lives and people choosing to just kill themselves because they think they're not getting what they want in the moment. Nobody is waiting to make things work out. They want it now, and if they don't get it now, well, they don't get it now, and it's a big problem, right? Quite not so. There's a lot to live for. Live gloriously. Live your best life now. Now, what are you waiting on? And this is what I want to say. Some people have a bucket list that they say they want to accomplish. You know, I want to make sure I jump off a cliff or climb the Himalayas. I'm like, so what are you waiting on to do that? Do it now, right? Some people say, well, I want to go to this or I want to. What are you waiting on? Why did you have to wait for a diagnosis to realize you have a bucket list in the first place? Right? Don't you agree with that? I know you do, right? You're nodding at me, right? Don't just have a bucket list. Do it now, right? Go do it now. What do you want to do? Every year you go on vacation to go to a different space, to go to a different place, experience a different thing. Don't wait for a diagnosis. Live your best life now. So when you do get that diagnosis, what is running through your mind is not filled with regret, because regret is going to make you bitter, and bitterness is going to make you angry, and anger is going to do what? Create frustration, and frustration is going to give you depression, and you're going to act out. You're going to hate on the very people who are taking care of you because you're going to resent their youth, vitality, and their health. The fact that they have mobility and can get up. The fact that they're taking care of you. I kid you not. So make sure that you live your best life. Live your best life now. Live it now. Because what's going to happen once you get the diagnosis, it's all regret city. Oh man, I never did this. Oh man, I never did that. No, do it now. I am so glad I've had a chance to see a little bit of the world. Not all of it. I didn't go to all the places that maybe I should have gone to. I've never been to Africa. I've never been to Asia. I've been to Europe. I've been to South America. And of course, here in North America and some parts of the Caribbean. But thank God I've seen a little, just a little. There's still some things I want to do. Do you see what I'm saying? But in the list of things, I'm like, the world is beautiful. I've seen some of it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't have regrets. I'm so glad that I got a chance to do that. Some of you have never left your state. How? You don't get in a car and drive? Dude, take the train, the bus. Some of you have never left your state, the borders of your state, so help me God. Get on a boat. Drive down to Miami. Get on a boat. Drive down to Atlanta and fly out from there to Miami or someplace to go get on a boat. Some of you never been to the West Coast. You don't know what California looks like. You think California sounds like it's a whole other country. It is a whole other country if you think about it. It's very different there. But go to California. Right? Go see it. Hey, it's not just movie land. Right? Some of you have never taken a plane yet. I've met people who say they've never been on a plane, and I'm like, oh my God. I kid you not. Somebody's saying something here. First time viewer, I love your attitude. Hey, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We do this every day, 10 a.m., just so you know. And you can listen in on Spotify and other platforms, right? And the other platforms, other podcasts, wherever your favorite podcast, right? But go live your life. Folks, why are we going to wait on a diagnosis to place a border on our lives and our existence? Why should we do that? Because then it becomes terminal. Then they start giving you exact dates. You ever been in one of those situations where they literally are giving you a day? Like they're telling you 6 months from now. I've been in hospital rooms with people where they have said 2 to 3 weeks maximum. And this is me. So help me God. I'm literally standing there like they're pronouncing a death sentence. And the person is laid up in the hospital in the bed looking like, okay, this is it. And the family members have gone nuts. The thought of the loss was enough. People have walked out of hospital rooms. I know when I was in the hospital room, when we took mom to the emergency room and they said they saw a mass on her lung, I'm like, first of all, that's a lie. There can be no mass on my mother's lung because she's sitting right there in front of me and she looks as healthy as a lark. Nothing is wrong with her. That was my denial. Then the doctor, her physician came, her oncologist came, and the next day and provided us with an accurate reading of the condition as they read the results. So I said, well, he said at this stage, they want to stage it. So I said, I have to go out of town on a pre-planned trip, and I need to go. So when you get the results, don't give the results until I come back. And everybody said, okay. That was how I was dealing with this. I went to go take care of business and so on. When we came back, and we're all in the hospital room where this doctor is going to tell us what the biopsy would reveal, I kid you not, I walked out of that hotel. I walked out of the hospital room. After he said it, I said, you got to be kidding me. You're telling me my mother is going to die. You're telling me my mother has 6 to 8 months. And after that, that's it. I'm like, no, I'm not accepting it. I said, Mom, God built the earth in 6 days. He can surely make a miracle. 6 days, a day unto the Lord is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. Surely he can work a miracle in 6 months because they told us 6 to 8 months. I kid you not. And my attitude was disbelief and denial. And it's normal. I knew intellectually that it was normal. And I had to collect myself. I went away, right? Got myself together. And then I came back the next day and I said, listen, this is what we're going to do. That's where you need to be. So go to my website, harrietkemmock.com. Thanks so much.